In the last episode, we looked at the solar eclipses of 2017 and 2024, and I explained how they represented the darkening during the crucifixion of Christ. I also showed how events from 2017 were being replayed in 2025. Are all of these incidents related in any way, or are they simply interesting coincidences? Well, consider the following. If you've read my books or watched my videos, you know that my research reveals that Donald Trump is playing half of the role of a mirrored Jesus Christ. The other half was played by Barack Obama. As happens in mirrored events, the role of one can become divided and given to two to play in the next iteration. Certain elements defining the life of Christ were divided in this way, with some going to Obama, while the others went to Trump. If you want to learn more, check out my video series on the symbolism of Donald Trump, or read my latest book. Confused? How can Trump and Obama and Charlie Kirk all be echoes of Christ? Welcome to the Hall of Mirrors in which we reside. I have uncovered a plethora of examples of the story of Christ replaying over and over, but they are usually separated by some large expanse of time. In this case, something happened in the 2020 timeframe. Events and roles became reflected, mirrored across the board. For example, the 9/11 false flag in 2001 replayed as the October 7th, 2023 false flag Hamas attack in Israel. The Trump term in 2016 became mirrored in the Trump term of 2024. What was good for the American people in the first Trump term became mirrored as hardship in the second. Not only that, the role of Christ, played by Trump and Obama, became assumed solely by Charlie Kirk sometime after 2024, just like Christ assumed the role of Moses and Elijah during the Transfiguration. 1 into 2, and then 2 into 1. You don't have to believe this or accept it, but it is happening. Whether it is real or manufactured is ultimately irrelevant. Events that occurred 2,000 years ago are being recreated. They want you to believe this repeating narrative, and they go to great lengths to recreate it, as we will see. Trump, in the role of a mirrored Christ, a literal Antichrist, was inaugurated as President of the United States on 20 January 2025, and he did so without putting his hand on a Bible, lest it likely burst into flames. Charlie Kirk's alleged execution took place 33 weeks and 3 days, inclusive, later, at roughly the same time of the day. So, a man taking over the reins of the Christian nation, and who is or was playing a mirrored role of Christ, takes his crown, and then, at the age of 33 weeks, a sacred crucifixion takes place to someone with the last name of Kirk, which means church, who created something called Turning Point USA. Put it all together. Quite simply, Charlie's crucifixion was a microcosm, just like the crucifixion of Christ was a microcosm for what has been happening in the United States for the past 24 years, and likely a little longer. It happened over an abbreviated time span instead of a drawn-out one. This event was the turning point for the United States. This was the beginning of that mirrored crucifixion I reveal in my books and videos, the one that crazily moves backward in time. It began with Charlie, and it ended, the crucifixion part at least, on 9/11. It began on 9/10, and it ended on 9/11, 24 years earlier. That's correct. This crucifixion, being a mirror, moved in reverse. Like a wave colliding with a wall, reverses and moves in the opposite direction. 24 is the number defining the number of hours in a day, so it symbolically referenced the last day. It's meant to recreate a divine day in human terms, since, compared to the gods, a day is as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as a day. This is appropriate, since the symbolism on 9/11 represented not a replay of Christ's crucifixion, but the crucifixion of the evil God of the Old Testament. Remember, this crucifixion is a mirror echo of Christ's. Roles reverse and mirror events, with the sequence playing in reverse. The God of the Old Testament once sent Christ to the cross, and now it's that creature's turn. This was realized and proven by the destruction of WTC-7 later in the day on 9/11. WTC-7, or the Salomon Brothers building, referenced Solomon's Temple, the Third Temple, the only manifestation of the God of the Old Testament in the physical world, the one in which no stone would be left standing, as Christ stated. This was the only object which could have been destroyed. The twin pillars in front fell, the twin towers, which recalled the twin pillars, Jachin and Boaz, and even the two thieves crucified with Christ. And then the temple fell, representing the death of the God of the Old Testament, and hence recalling the death of Christ. It represented the death of the great Satan, the United States itself. The tables were turned at the turning point for the USA. The Christian nation of the United States will soon come to an end, and its end will be engineered from the inside, just like Christ's and Charlie's alleged ends. It's interesting to note that the BBC reported that WTC-7 had collapsed some 20 minutes prior to it actually happening. Many pointed to this as some sort of screw-up by the elite that proves they were working off of a script. No, everything went as planned that day, my fellow souls. They announced it early to introduce the element of time to the narrative. Remember, to the gods, a day is as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as a day. They were showing you that WTC-7, representing the Jewish God of the Old Testament, Satan, exists in a different temporal dimension, or otherwise experiences time differently. Again, this was all part of the message they were imparting. There is much more to this analysis. I suggest you view Part 6 of my video series on the symbolism of Donald Trump, because not only did the crucifixion play in reverse, it reflected all of the events of these contemporary years we are living right now, backward in time, to a point centered on 1888, where they all played again in earnest. If you want to know what will happen in the days ahead, look to what happened from about 1884 to 1945. All of those key events have already replayed or are in the process of replaying right now. Recognizing this fundamental fact is how I was able to accurately predict, 3 years before it happened, that we would relive a pandemic and that it would likely occur around 2020. So, since we are dealing with mirrored events that eternally repeat, if the Jews murdered Christ 2,000 years ago, it stands to reason that they were behind the alleged murder of Charlie Kirk, playing his own version of a Christ. What other evidence circumstantially tends to point to Israel? Well, they have murdered more correspondents than have died in basically all wars since the U.S. Civil War. Indeed, Assassination is Israel's primary method of terrorism and attack. They fight in a feline or feminine manner, indirectly, because it honors their feminine god, Satan/Lucifer/the devil. Charlie was essentially a correspondent, as well as being a teacher, like Christ. He came to show the young a different perspective of their world, to engage in debate, which is the only way to claw your way to the truth. But evil doesn't debate. It manufactures narratives and situations to justify its eternal victimhood. As in the time of Christ, truth is a message that the Jewish elect could not allow to get out. And then, when Christ started spouting that the Jews actually worshiped the devil, well, that was too much for them. Christ had to be dealt with before he swayed even more to his growing cause. The same thing was experienced by Charlie. The devil's demons once again tried to protect their game. Israel only survives as long as their lies survive. When they begin to lose control of their brainwashed herd, their power ends. Their power is entirely based on willing participation via careful manipulation, on getting the goyim to do their bidding, like mindless robots. If you are trying to take a bull to market, you need the bull to willingly walk to its slaughter. You won't move the bull any other way. So you have to fool it, entice it, bribe it, get it to choose its fate. And then you can sit back and say, well, it chose to die. We had nothing to do with it. Wait, you say, if the crucifixion allegedly represented the God of the Old Testament and the United States, both representative of the great Satan, why choose someone like Charlie Kirk, a seemingly good person? Aren't they supposed to axe one of their own for true balance to be achieved? Indeed. Now you see why, immediately afterward, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, overtly claimed Charlie was a great supporter of Israel. He, like Christ, had to be portrayed as a Jew, a lover of Jews, or the king of the Jews, in order to properly serve as a valid scapegoat. Long ago, just like Charlie, Christ didn't come with all the knowledge of the gods. He was just a fallible man who had to learn and who had to be taught. He was a man who had to figure things out, and this process took time. At first, he believed what he was taught about Judaism, but then he got some divine help. Were they angels or demons? Whatever they were, the so-called angels mentioned in the Bible who ministered to him conveniently left out key pieces of the puzzle that he didn't figure out until the very end. Hell, even on the cross, he still hadn't totally figured things out. My God, why hast thou forsaken me? Clearly, he didn't know everything. Otherwise, why ask such a question? The alleged murder of Charlie Kirk, like the murder of Christ, was a warning to all others in the U.S. that dare to criticize the chosen. They will now come for us. They will now murder truth-tellers wherever they reside. This was their open declaration of war against Christ, and against Christians, and against, first and foremost, the truth. More than anyone else, that warning message was meant for Donald Trump, to keep him in line. Trump, in the mirrored role of Christ, was now playing Malchus, servant of the Jewish elect. See my other videos, part 5 in particular. The one who had his ear cut off by Simon Peter when he came for Christ. Do you not see the true meaning of Trump being shot in his ear? Roles reverse in mirrored events. That was Trump's moment of transfiguration. He was now the deliverer of the accused, the United States, through the crucifixion, instead of being the one that was to be crucified. He was now the servant of the Jewish elect, Netanyahu and Miriam Adelson. Haven't you noticed how Trump has changed between his first term and this one? He's much more bloodthirsty now. He doesn't care about the people or even his base that got him elected. He's out for number one, himself, and manufacturing his legacy, like destroying the East Wing of the White House. In many ways, Trump also delivered his alleged friend, Charlie Kirk, to serve as the accused for the crucifixion and to become the proverbial starting pistol. I say alleged friend because Trump has no friends. He doesn't know the meaning of the word. When asked by a reporter how he was doing following the death of Charlie, Trump replied, "I think very good." And then he directed the attention of reporters to the new ballroom he was having installed. Did you get that? I'm doing very good. Now come check out my new ballroom. Is that the answer a normal person would say in response to a question about the death of someone close to you? Of course not. That is the answer of a disassociated child, someone that is incapable of processing or even possessing true emotional connections to anything. It's the answer of an incurable and uncaring narcissist. This is the absolute worst kind of president to ever have, because he only cares for himself. In addition to the role of Malchus, Trump is even playing the dual role of Pontius Pilate, washing his hands of everything regarding the deleterious desires of Israel. And if history cannot be changed, only replayed, then Trump likely knew about what would happen to Charlie, just like Malchus and Pilate knew the fate of Christ. Indeed, Trump himself looked extremely worn and haggard on the next day at the 9/11 memorial tributes. Was he, perchance, beginning to see the true cost of his past sins? Was he finally realizing that not only were thousands of people being horribly slaughtered in Gaza and Ukraine to maintain his alleged secrets, but one of his greatest supporters had just allegedly been brutally erased, again, all to maintain his alleged secrets? Because make no mistake, Trump is doing everything he can to bury the Epstein files, because he's very likely, allegedly, all over them. It's only logical. He's certainly not protecting anyone other than himself. If he could throw someone under the bus to play scapegoat, like he apparently already did with Epstein in the past, if Speaker of the House Mike Johnson is to be believed, he would happily do it again to save himself. Trump is, after all, and above all, a survivor. And his recent change of heart in wanting to release the files and signing the bill passed by Congress after claiming they were a Democrat hoax only means that said files have finally been sanitized, or so thoroughly redacted that no names of rich perps will likely remain. Trump claimed to be the peace president, when in actuality, he will be the president that leaves everything in pieces, just to maintain the shame of the game a few moments longer. Every day, his alleged past crimes will eat him alive more and more. Every day, he will wonder if this is the day when his demon handlers in Israel will leak some more of the files, or the files. Surely he has to know that he will be the one person sacrificed on the altar of Epstein. Surely he has to know that he will pay the political price to bear the sins of all the other perverted rich oligarch pedophiles that must remain nameless. Just like Christ bore our sins. Surely he's not stupid enough to believe that, even as president, he would magically end up being the sole server of Satan that doesn't end up getting eaten by Satan? Surely he's not that stupid, is he? If you found this topic interesting, then please check out my other videos and my books. My website is www.mastersofthemirror.com. Thanks.